Hey, Avery, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for spending your time with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're honored to have you as the top team leader in the entire country for eXp. How does that feel?
It feels pretty good, but we work really hard, so we're happy to be here.
Good, awesome. So tell me a little bit about your business, how you operate, and how you feel like you've achieved the level of success that you have here.
So we work only with real estate investors, particularly real estate investors who buy short-term rentals. And I think most of our success can be attributed to practicing what we preach. So I myself own 250 doors worth of real estate investments. And then our agents, between them all, there's about 50 of them, they own about 400 doors. So we all own real estate and we all only work with investors. So I think the practicing what we preach is really what's made us successful.
So you found that to be the niche that a lot of agents talk about, finding their niche and what works for them. And this has been what has driven you and motivated you and gotten you to the position that you're in.
Yeah. And I mean, back when I started, before I had a team and I was doing some short-term rental clients and then some primary home clients, I just found that it was easier. The short-term rental deals were easier because I understood it more. Whereas, a primary home buyer who would do things like not buy a really great deal because they didn't like the color of the paint on the walls, which is easily changeable. Like that drives me kind of nuts. And that was friction for me. So I just kind of followed what came easiest. And it's been the short-term rental and working with investors, which I know a lot of agents hate working with investors, but for me, I find that easier.
Gotcha. So you have investors from all over the country that invest. And so how do you market yourselves to attract those clients?
Well, it's more of a situation where, real estate investors know other real estate investors. So it just kind of started off as a like, hey, you're making how much on this cabin? Help me buy one of those. And it just kind of went, it's really more of a word of mouth thing. Like we've never run an ad. Most of our business is just from past clients, either buying more with us or sending us their friends and things like that. So it's been very organic so far, and not like a forced, okay, we're going to buy a bunch of Zillow leads and cold call a bunch of people.
Gotcha. So I see your book title hanging up behind you there, Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so the book has been out on Bigger Pockets Publishing. It came out end of 2021. We've sold about 65,000 copies, so not bad, but it's just very much like a basic how-to when it comes to buying and managing short-term rentals. So it teaches you the types of markets, how to analyze a property, how to choose a market wisely, because some markets are great and some markets are not great. And they can seem great when you're looking at a property and go, oh, wow, this looks great. This will be a great short-term rental, but only to find out that the city doesn't allow short-term rentals or things like that. Teaches you how to analyze, how to buy, how to manage. Basically, just a start to finish walkthrough of how to analyze, buy, and manage short-term rentals.
Awesome. I might have to pick up a copy of that. Where do you sell it? On Amazon or where would
so it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Bigger Pockets bookstore, wherever books are sold.
Awesome. So tell me how you ended up here at eXp and what do you find about our business model that helps you run your business?
So for me, I started with Keller Williams and it was fine. Then I joined, I'd done a few deals of my own, maybe like 5 or 6. Then I joined a team. And while I was on that team, I hated it. I was on it for 2.5 weeks. And yeah, I made it 2.5 weeks before I was like, F this. So I found myself, they just bought a bunch of leads, had us cold calling a bunch of people. And I was like, man, why am I doing this? I did not quit my corporate job to sit in this weird office with no like decor, with like mismatched furniture and be told to cold call people all day. That's not what I'm doing. And had a really bad experience trying to get off of that team. And then ended up leaving Keller Williams over it, bouncing around a bunch of local. I lived in Nashville at the time. Now I live in 38, Florida. Ended up bouncing around a bunch of local brokerages in Nashville. And the reason I ended up coming over to eXp, I had a few friends at eXp, and what I really need is access to multiple MLSs. And since eXp has access to everything, that was really attractive to me because I was living in Nashville, but doing most of our deals in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. And I would have to ask my broker anywhere I went, like, hey, and this was before you could do any type of orientation or CE courses online. This is before COVID. I'd have to go to my broker and say, hey, I know I'm just one agent at your brokerage, but will you please drive 4 hours to East Tennessee and sit on this orientation so that we can have access to that MLS? So for me, it was an access thing. And that's how it started. But that was beginning of 2019. So I've been here almost 5 years now.
And you enjoy it over here?
No, I hate it. No, yeah, I love eXp. I have zero complaints, and it's been a really great experience. I've met a lot of great people, get a lot of great support. There's lots of great training that kind of can help fill in the gaps when we bring on new agents, where we're training them, mostly on investments and stuff. We can send them to eXp's general, this is how you do a contract in Tennessee, or there's a lot of support that kind of takes some of the training off of my personal plate, which I really appreciate.
Right. Now that makes total sense. And I see your Icon Agent Awards back there as well.
Yeah.
So you've made it, how many years have you been an Icon since you've been here, I guess?
Every year. So 4 currently. And
right.
We'll hit it for next year too. So should be 5 shortly.
Awesome. So that stock kind of adds up, doesn't it?
It did until they split it.
Yeah.
It was looking really good, but yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's come in handy for me a few times, I can say, and I've only done it 1 year. So, but it proved to be beneficial for me at the.
Yeah, I haven't even been paying attention to it because I think I only just got vested like a month or 2 ago. So, or maybe Q2 of this year. So I just hadn't paid attention to it because I couldn't do anything with it anyway, but I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah, you should go. I don't know what it's at right now, but I know that it was definitely worth the award, that it was definitely worth it to me to achieve that, to have that money given back in that format. So I know a lot of agents don't pay a lot of attention to it, but I do think it's something that is unique to us, and that does prove to be profitable over time. So let's see. Tell me a little bit about, so you have 50 people on your team. How many states are you licensed in?
So we are in short-term shops we're in 20 markets, I think 8 states total.
Gotcha. So you do a lot of referral business, I would assume, as well?
So not really, no. So we're very particular about where we take referrals from, because what was happening is we would have people go, let me rephrase that. Since we've become like the brand when it comes to short-term rental investing, when people would say, hey, I have a referral for you, and we would go in our database, that person would already be there. So we don't do a whole lot of referral business, just because most of the vast majority of the time, the client is already in our database.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess if you have that many agents in that many markets and you're working that pretty heavily, that would happen though.
I mean, I'm not saying that we won't take referrals that are, a legit referral, absolutely. But a lot of times it's like, okay, well, we already know these people. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So how long have you been in real estate, period? Like,
I got licensed in 2017, but I've been an investor since 2015.
So what did you do in your previous life?
So my previous life, I was a marketing manager in the music business in Nashville.
Oh, wow. So you had a marketing background. So you kind of know how the ins and outs of how to market yourself from that experience.
Yeah. I've got an MBA in marketing. And, before that, I was in the music business on the performance side, which also just kind of inherently involves a lot of marketing. So definitely come from a marketing background for sure.
Gotcha. So what advice would you give new agents that are trying to find their niche? I know some people want to work with buyers, some want to work with sellers. I do think that it's important when you start this business to kind of focus on an area and put all of your eggs in that basket, so to speak. Do you agree with that, or what would you give advice to a new agent?
Yeah. So my advice is going to kind of contradict itself. So at first I would say, take any business you can get, but as you get busier, start to focus harder on and hit the gas on the avenue of business that is the easiest for you. So for me, it was investors, because I was an investor and I was around them, and that's who I was talking to, online or whatever. So that was easy. But, maybe you're like, maybe it's an interest that you have. Maybe you're really into yoga and your people in your yoga class really, and that's how you kind of make friends and not market, but like how you organically meet people. Then maybe you focus on that. Or, really great example. Back when I was new and I started getting pretty busy on the investment side, but I was still trying to do the whole like, well, no, think of how much more business I could do if I did primary homes also. I don't want to pigeonhole myself and be the short-term rental girl. I was really did not want to, quote, pigeonhole myself. And then after a friend of mine whose parents were moving to outside Nashville from somewhere, I can't remember, a friend I'd known for like 10 years. And they ran me all over Tennessee, from like Jackson, Tennessee to Cookeville in the same day, which you know how far that is. It's like 4 hours apart. We would go look at like 10 houses. They're all 4 hours apart. I spent all weekend, 3 weekends, 4 weekends in a row doing that. And they fired me. So I've been looking with the mom. And then the dad came. First day the dad came, we were looking at, and keep in mind, I'd just had like a $20 million year. This was, I think, in December, had a $20 million year on the investment side. They fired me because I didn't know where to find the HUD plate, which is essentially the serial number on a $50,000 mobile home that we were looking at. And I'm like, $20 million worth of investors have trusted me with their investment, and I don't know where to find this serial number. And you're going to, like, I'm so experienced and you're going to fire me over this. And it was like this whole like discourse in my brain of like, I'm too experienced to be getting fired over this. And so then I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm not trying to do everything anymore. I'm going to focus on the short-term rentals, because that 20 million in volume came pretty easy. And this primary home stuff is like, I'm not good at it. This is not working. There's friction. I'm getting fired. So I just said, well, screw it. I'm just going to focus. I'm going to go all in on short terms instead of worrying about pigeonholing myself. And then that's when it took off. So start off by getting everything you can. But when those deals start to flow in, that like, oh, it's a little easier. This works a little better when the people come from this avenue. Hit the gas on that.
Gotcha. I think that's really good advice. So, did you quit your job in marketing before you started real estate? Did you work into real estate while you kept your job, or how did you make that transition? Because I know a lot of people are part-time, they want to go full-time, but it's hard to build a business when you're working 8 hours a day. So how did you make that transition, and what was about real estate that made you want to jump into this wild west that we live in?
So I had fully quit my job by the time I got my license. It was happening kind of concurrently. I remember I was sitting in my desk at my job while my boss was off work, and I was just sitting there by myself with nothing to do for 8 hours, like taking my real estate course. And so it all kind of happened at the same time. We were on our third investment property, and I was making $35,000 a year at my job. So on our first investment property, we were able, this was a long-term rental, not a short-term rental in Nashville. And we were able to rent that house for almost $1,000 over the mortgage every month. So the mortgage was $650. We were able to rent for $1,550. And we noticed that when that first rent check came in, we we're like, man, after all my deductions for insurance and blah, 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 and 401k matching at my job, that's about the same number. We just doubled my income with this one house. So by the time we got to number 3, over the course of about a year, we were like, okay, I'm working on getting my real estate license. And even if I just did our own deals, the commission on that, we'd only have to buy maybe 4 deals a year for me to replace my income totally. So for me, I had it a little easier because I didn't have much income to have to replace, but it all kind of happened at the same time. And I started getting clients pretty quickly right off the bat. So it all just kind of like fell into place for me. So I don't unfortunately have a clear answer on when the time to quit your job is. But I mean, if you have any money at all saved up, like I'd probably just go ahead and go all in and just don't give yourself a plan B.
Right. Because it's like sink or swim if you're in that situation and you force yourself to get out there.
Yeah.
So are you going to eXpCon next month?
I am. I'm speaking at eXpCon, so I will be there.
Awesome. What can you tell us a little insight on what you're going to speak about?
So speaking on teams-ish, we're talking more about being the anti-team. So like I said, I hated that traditional team that I was on, and I told myself I would never start a team. And then I started ending up with the volume to where I needed help. And I said, well, I am not going to run my team like that because that was miserable. And I want people to want to be on my team. I want people to want to work for me. I don't want them to feel miserable. Like, why the hell am I coming in here making cold calls every day? This sucks. So I've really tried to be that kind of anti-team. So we're going to be talking about that.
So what's the definition of an anti-team?
We have to come to eXpCon.
Okay. I understand. I unfortunately cannot come this year. My son's getting married at my house the weekend at the end of eXpCon, so I'm going to be prepping for that. But I went last year, and I really had a good time, and it was really good to get to meet a lot of agents and network that way. And I know if you go there and network with other people, it's just benefits everybody. Which is one thing I like about eXp is that we're all in it to kind of help each other.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite thing about it? Do you go every year?
No, this will be my first time.
Your first time. Awesome. Well, it's great that you're getting to speak, and I know that your sales volume has put you on that podium and that platform to allow you to do that. So that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to go. And my mom and my daughter are coming. I almost said my mom and my sister. My mom and my daughter are coming. My daughter's 5, so we're going to do some fun stuff. And then we're going to drive over to Palm Springs and go to Power Trip Fest, which is a classic rock festival.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with this morning before we sign off?
Real estate, it's a really weird time in real estate right now. And I think if everybody just kind of, especially if you're a new agent, just kind of hang on and stick with it. I think that over the course of the next year, things are going to turn around a little bit. It's not going to go back to 2% interest rates, but I think it will go back down to the 5s, and then everything, I think equilibrium will be reached in the housing market. So just hang on tight, keep working, and we'll get there.
Well, let me ask you one more thing. I know that you do a lot of videos and things like, you have a podcast too, right?
I do. It's called The Short Term Show.
Okay. So I think a lot of agents have a hard time getting out of their comfort zone to do things like this, to even do things like we're doing now. What would you say to them to help them overcome that fear of just putting themselves out there? Because obviously that's something that you do readily and don't have hesitations about. So did you ever have that mindset where it was like, oh, I don't want to do this? Or has it always been your personality, and how did you get over it?
Oh, no, I still feel like, I don't want to do this, because I'm naturally very introverted, and I don't like to be the center of attention. I don't like to, for the longest time, I was like, selfies are douchey, and posting about yourself on the internet's douchey, and I'm not going to do that. And then just over time, so for me, it became an answering of questions for our clients. So we would have the same 10 questions. Every client's going to ask the same 10 to 20 questions. So it made a lot of sense to make some videos of like, hey, here's the answers to these questions. Here you go. And so when they have those questions, we can send them to that, and then we can go in depth on it, and it can kind of, streamline some processes and things. So I would say just do it. I mean, I started doing it. My very first video, I was like 8 months pregnant with my first kid and I was as big as a house and my face was as big as this entire screen. So that would have been the time that I was like, man, I do not. And I made sure in every video to be like, hey guys, I'm pregnant. So, you know, that most definitely the worst I've ever looked. So at the end, you know what I found from doing that? Not one person ever said like, oh, you're fat. Or, you know, you think of all these things like, oh man, I don't want people to think, or I don't want people to fight with me on the internet and say I said something stupid. They won't. Nobody cares what you look like. They just want to hear the value that you have to bring with your videos, you know, whatever it might be on. Maybe it's like how to write a contract, the terms of a contract, how earnest money works. They don't care what you look like. So it's real, but it's really, I'll tell you how my mom, my Southern mom always told me, like, they're not as worried about you as you think they are. So yeah. just just do it, put the information out there and you'll benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree. It gives people a little insight into your personality, and they can't know you or like you if they don't have a little bit of an inkling into kind of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, all right. Well, I will let you go. I know you're a busy lady, and I'm sure you've got 1,000 things to do today. So I appreciate you spending some time with us. And you want to just give a little bit about how to reach you, how to find your podcast, how to, if someone's interested in short-term rentals, what would be the best way, or they want to learn, what would be the best way for them to follow you on social media and things like that?
Best place to follow me is on Instagram at The Short Term Shop. Then we've got a link tree with all of the other things you could possibly need there in the bio. So follow us there.
Okay, awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate you, Avery, and we will get this posted and have fun at eXpCon, and I hope to see you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.